All right, well, welcome back. This is our subject matter expert video on remediation and cleaning up after the storm. Today we have with us Kent Sonnier, and probably in the background you can hear some of the people working, but we're trying to get this out to y'all. Kent is with Restoration Pros.
Yes, sir.
All right, and he'll tell you a little bit about what they do and maybe what you can do to keep your home safe.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Kent Sonnier with Doucet Services, Restoration Pros. We're a 24-year-old construction company that started remediation and water mitigation, disaster restoration 10 years ago. Started on my own home, so I'm kind of a professional. So that's where the Restoration Pros comes from. We are dealing with a lot of homeowners right now in the Lake Charles area and surrounding areas that are experiencing Hurricane Laura was more of a wind event, not quite as much water. So roofs are being ripped off. You're in need of tarp services. That's the first thing that your insurance company requires you to do, is to seal off your roof. So if you haven't got your tarp put up, you need to get a tarp on there. From there, there's going to be water damage on the inside of your house because there was days of rain after the event. Water and sheetrock, water and insulation, water and porous floor materials like your laminate flooring, carpet, they don't mix. It's a petri dish, if you can imagine. So the one thing that you need to do as a homeowner is to start your mitigation. Removal of wet, porous materials like your drywall, like your insulation, like your flooring, to expose the structure. You can do this yourself. They do have some CDC guidelines as far as wearing proper PPE, what to do in the event of exposure to mold spores. It's not something I recommend to everyone to take care of your own mitigation, but because of the volume of the storm, the volume of the damage, people are going to have to do their own work.
And regardless of what people might be thinking of PPE right now,
yeah.
If you have a true mold situation in the house, you want to do your best to follow the guidelines.
You don't want to breathe in mold spores. That's where you start to develop some issues. There are people that are allergic to mold spores or microbial growth, and you'll either break out in hives, you'll get a respiratory infection, long-term exposure, you can die. Okay. Right. So with that being said, you want to be as careful as you can with these things. The second thing that you need to keep in mind, if you're going to do your own mitigation work, is that you need to document everything in the event that you're filing an insurance claim. Your insurance company is going to need some before photos, which is before you start tearing things out. They're going to need some pictures of open cavities in the house, and they're going to need to see a pile of trash that all paints the picture of what took place in your home. When you get to the point where you're at an open cavity, your studs, your subfloors, your ceiling rafters, ceiling joists, everything is exposed, then you need a proper structural drawing before any building materials get put back on those your structure. So with that being said, most people can, I'm just going to say it because it's like a curse word to me, you can rent equipment, but you have to properly know how to use that equipment, because you can over dry a structure and cause more secondary damage to the structure of your home, causing you even more problems. So that's where we step in as professionals. You can save money on your insurance by doing your own mitigation, rip out, demolition work. But when it comes to the structural drying, ask as many questions as you can to whoever you get the equipment from. or call a professional.
Yeah. So I know that we use tools sometimes to check the moisture. There's moisture meters, and look, there's some that, it's kind of like renting. It may not be the ones you have; they're not quite as calibrated or technical. I know for wood or any surfaces like that, and especially in this situation, you're gonna be painting over everything anyway. If you get one that penetrates in, you're gonna get a better reading. You're gonna get a true reading of what's actually in that wood.
We've experienced that, David, as the hygrometers that we use and the moisture meters in general. The average person will say, when they call for a regular water event, not just Hurricane Laura or the floods of 16, I wiped up all the water. It doesn't look like it's wet.
It doesn't feel wet.
That's exactly. So what people need to realize, or what I would like to stress to them, is that in every crevice in your house that has been touched by water, you have not thoroughly dried it until you find out how wet it is. We do live in South Louisiana. We do have moisture in all building materials, but there is an acceptable moisture amount, and that's standard.
Well, as you said,
that standard needs to be reached.
You need some moisture in material. Yeah, absolutely. If you have no moisture in wood, it's going to be brittle and fall apart.
And that's what we're talking about. If somebody gets their own equipment and starts to dry in, and you can rent them for 7 days, but it may not take but 3 days to dry it.
Right.
And if you're drying for the whole 7 days, well, then the first time you're going to fall against the wall, the studs are going to crush because they're dry, Yeah. So those are the types of things that you have to be mindful of when you're using your own equipment. Be careful from what you read on the internet. There's a lot of stuff out there on putting bleach on mold, vinegar on mold, all of these things like that, and you can just bounce back and keep rolling.
I think that could be stated very succinctly. Be careful what you read on the internet.
Be careful what you read on the internet.
Whether it's about mold or anything else.
Exactly. So with the mitigation process, you can do the demo yourself. I mean, you also want to be careful of electrical and all of these other things that are hazards to you, but wear your PPE.
And we'll be discussing some of those in other videos with different subject matter experts. But, kind of to that point, the CDC does have, and I know there are different people with different feelings about the CDC right now. But this is some time-proven information here, and it's good information. We're going to put a link on our site for you to have access to, where all the links are. Check that out. It's going to go directly to this document, so you don't have to hunt around the CDC's page looking for it. And it's 4 pages of information on what to wear, what items you might need. I mean, they get as simple as, talking about having a bucket, a stiff bristle brush, N95 respirators if you can find them, and so some basic things to some very detailed things. And doing that, one thing I get asked about a lot, Kent, anyway, after the flood was, somebody telling me, hey, I cleaned it out, I dried it out, even did the moisture meter, feel like it's good, everything's whatever, but I still have, I scrubbed the studs, but there's still this kind of stain on there or whatever. Do I got to tear those studs out, or what can we do at that point?
When you look at a stud and it has staining on it, if you can't take a box cutter or the blade of a knife and slide it in like it would be cutting through butter, you're still structurally sound. So you'll have the staining on it.
Right. Not
going to be an issue.
Okay, but when you go back, should you use a oil-based primer or an encapsulator of some type,
we utilize an encapsulant in our remediation process. Right. So if you can obtain that, by all means, it's not just an all-base primer that you can use. They have some with mold inhibitors in it.
Right.
That's what you want to look for. The word mold inhibitor. Okay. And coat that sucker. Get it nice and covered, man.
Yeah. The extra you spend for one more gallon.
Yeah.
Is worth it.
The gallons are a little expensive, but it's a doggone good product. And if you're not putting it on a rotten piece of wood, you will still maintain the security that you need. There is a standard in Louisiana, but in order for you to get the proper drying standard for your own home, you need to find an unaffected area in your house. So you need to have you need to know your room temperatures, your relative humidities, because this is what those hygrometers, those moisture meters read. Right? It tells you the moisture content based on the atmosphere. If you could go in one house on this side of the block, on the other side of the block, it's much wetter.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, and it also could deal with, did you have a hole in the roof? Did the window get blown out? Right. You got it. In this situation, we have a lot of different variables.
So you want to try to find if you obtain a moisture meter, you want to find an area of your house that was unaffected or affected less to be able to find your drying standard, so you don't over dry any of those materials. Right.
And you would want to, if it's an interior area, if you can, compare it to an interior.
Absolutely.
Not compared to an attic.
Never,
it's going to be very different.
You want to be able to do a like type room.
As close as you can.
Yeah. Disaster restoration company. We are also a construction company. So we have skilled professionals that can handle any stage of your disaster. I'm open to a conversation. If you want to give us a call, we can definitely do a consultation over the phone. I don't have a problem with that. I'm as helpful as I can be in those situations. In most cases, if you're not dealing with an actual flood from an exterior source and you're having to use your NFIP or National Flood Insurance, it's covered by your home insurance. You may have a hurricane deductible that would apply, which kind of raises, the situation a little bit financially. But what you do today to mitigate the damage and what you do to actually protect your structure by getting us involved, getting a professional involved, make sure your pre-loss conditions are where are obtainable. So your insurance company is, let me see how I can put this. Their obligation to you is to bring you to pre-loss conditions. Your obligation to your insurance company is to mitigate, to cause as less secondary damage as possible. So at any of these stages that you decide that this is overwhelming, you can't handle it, call us. We'll have a conversation about it. If it's something that I can help you with over the phone, great. If you have to enlist our services, we are very reasonable. The insurance companies dictate the prices that we can charge. So don't be scared of that.
Okay.
That's
good. And
I wanted to put that out there.
You taught me something too. And I know people are worried about prices and can I save? Yeah. But this really is one of those areas that they're not going to, as a contractor, there's difference what they pay for the homeowner to do things themselves and what they pay for the contractor. And that cleanup part of it is one of those differences that it definitely can fluctuate quite a bit.
Yeah, and you can get a lot of the mitigation stuff done yourself, tearing out drywall, all of that, because right now it's detrimental. If you don't get it out, then you're calling me for a remediation. If you don't do it properly, then you're calling me for a remediation because you haven't dried it correctly and there's still going to be microbial growth. And wiping it with bleach all day long does nothing. Right? It does nothing. Yeah. So with that being said, at some point you're going to need to call me. You might as well call me early. At least we can have that conversation.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you very much for coming and doing this. I really appreciate it. If y'all take a look at the other videos we have, look at the different documents. Again, we're going to have this up on the site and hopefully, most of what you need to find, if you don't find it here, you'll find access to it or be able to find your way to it from come to this site. We're just trying to remove those uncertainties for you to help build a little peace of mind in a place that right now there doesn't seem to be a whole lot. So good luck. God bless.